Well, we have somebody, the great Nick Bottini, who who sent me his book not that long ago and said, "Hey, I want you to take a look at this." And to be honest with you, I get a lot of offers. Only with my group and my visibility now, people want me to read their books, and I kind of did the all right, I'll read your book out of just being nice, or I'll skim through it and pretend like I read it, and then I just give them like a pat on the back and wish them well. But I started reading it, and I've read I don't know how many books on the principles, a ton of them, and there's something about his that was that simplified it in a fresh way that I haven't read before. And to be honest with you, it's not that different in a sense of what he's teaching in the paradigm, but his examples, his understanding, maybe his musicality, his musical background. I don't know what it is, but you could feel the difference when you read the book. And it's not a crazy thick book. It's a really nice read. You read it, you get done, and you like want to go out and like hang out in the world. And it's really nice. So when he did this Kickstarter, I said, I got to get him on here because I'm curious to ask him a few questions on it. And hopefully, his goal is to get this up and running. And he's kind of there. He's not yet. And I think hopefully with this Zoom call and with you guys on, spreading the message, hopefully we can do a group effort and see if we can all get his book out into the world, not because it's his book out, to be honest with you, because that's, if that's the case and everyone wants his book out, but he's got some cool stuff that he's working with. And that's what I want him to share with us and also give us a take on the principles from his point of view. So let me unmute Mr. Nick. How are you, buddy?
I'm good, man. It's very,
Good,
very
man.
kind words to hear.
Yeah, of course, dude. So you wrote a book called Just Play, The Simple Truth Behind Musical Excellence. I know that the principles obviously are a universal understanding, but why, right off the bat, I want to know what made you go towards the route of being specifically speaking to musicians with this understanding?
I was looking for that book when I started to learn about the principles myself as a musician, and I thought, I've been introduced to this understanding. It's making a huge difference. I don't know, there must be a book for musicians, or there must be something, somebody working in this arena already. And I couldn't find it. I just couldn't believe that there wasn't anything that was talking about the principles and relating it to creativity and to musicians. And yeah, it is universal. But it just seemed to me that as I sort of got deeper and deeper into the understanding myself, that there was so much misunderstanding about what's doing the creating for a musician. What's doing the creating of the sound, of the ideas. There's so much misunderstanding, and so many musicians kind of identifying themselves, their whole identity, as the one of being responsible for creating stuff, being responsible for whether their music succeeds or fails, and they're taking things very, very personally. And it just seemed that as a group, that they would benefit from having a gentle kind of introduction to it. And it didn't seem to me that it was necessary to do it as a general introduction. It just seems, making it about musical excellence that was the thing that musicians were looking for. And what they really needed was or what I wanted to give those people who were looking for musical excellence was this new understanding, this new paradigm, because it's not talked about among musicians pretty much.
I love what you said. You wrote it because you wanted that book when you were, as being a musician. I think that's pretty genius. I didn't even know in the music world it was an issue about creativity. I thought it's a given that when you're a musician, that creativity comes from whatever it comes from. It's not the case, huh?
No, well, it's because I think the thing is that musicians, there's no such thing as a musician. I think that's the first thing, is that they're not one like homogenous group. There's no such thing as someone who is a musician or someone who isn't a musician. It's we're talking about formless principles that do the creating of ideas, of actions, of all, they create everything. It's the creation of everything. So to say that one person is a musician or an artist and somebody else isn't, that's to say that the principles aren't universal. We're saying that, the understanding is that what creates is what everybody is. So therefore, by definition, everybody is musician. Everybody, it's just your nature to create, to have it as a capacity to be able to express, whether it's in sound or art or sculpture or design. It's all basically the same creative process, and then we give it a name. But so the first thing is that musicians, whatever that means, they then like to kind of compartmentalize themselves into experienced musician, amateur musician, good musician, bad musician, pop musician, and that's all made up. All those lines are made up. The kid that opens the violin case for the first time is musician, as much as concert soloist, as much as person that fills a stadium, as much as somebody who wishes they did it but never has, or thinks they didn't come from a musical family, or whatever. All the stuff that I've heard before a million times. We're all as equally capable of creating, because we are that which creates. That we don't have any choice in it. We use that creativity to tell ourselves the stories of which box we fit in. That's so. And a lot of, especially professional musicians, they quite often, if they're struggling, or even if they're not particularly struggling, they tend to want to give themselves, I don't know, like give themselves a packaging. So like I said, like pop musician or classical musician or whatever. So it's like I speak to like conservatoire students recently at a conservatoire in London, and they're talking about why they didn't get into a different college, and another group of elite musicians able to really perform at a fantastic level. But it's so easy to find a reason why you can't, or why you're not quite there yet, or why you're not quite in the right kind of group that you should be in. It's all bullshit. It's all made up. So that creative people, whatever that means, are as vulnerable to overthinking as everybody else is. It's all illusory.
So I do dancing. I'm a dancer, not a professional dancer. But what you said really struck me. With a child that opens up the violin case for the first time is already a musician, because I think one of the biggest things we miss is curiosity is part of the gift. Like, if I didn't have the curiosity, the means to even want to explore, dancing would have never came in the forefront. And that is one of the creative gifts of the principles, is the fact that we want to do something, want to even open up a case in of itself wouldn't, if you didn't do that, you wouldn't be a musician. If I didn't look at a dancer and see the beauty of it, I would never become a dancer. So you're absolutely right. The process of being a musician, we don't know when it started. Did it start when you were born, when they opened up a case, when they saw someone here? What a brilliant way of even looking at music that way, because what I'm hearing is that the curiosity of being a musician is what brought you to be a musician, and then we make some arbitrary bullshit terminology about, well, yeah, I'm a musician, I'm a pop musician, I'm a this musician, and we kind of shrink ourselves back down when we use the creative force to get us there in the first place. I think that's genius.
Absolutely. Yeah. As soon as someone has the urge, they've got it. That's the thing. That's it. Yeah. Brilliant.
Yeah, that was brilliant. And so in your opinion, does the urge go away, or what happens to that urge? What or that creative spark, or however you want to say it?
I think that's what we are. I think that I think it's not people. I don't know. I think it's nice for people to kind of think that because they create something that they're special in some way. It's quite a seductive idea that I'm. I used to love this, and it's part of the reason I probably first started playing music was, I liked to have a party trick, and I was the guy that played the violin at school, and I was the guy that could do something that nobody else could do. And it was, as soon as I thought it was about me and about how valuable I was as a separate person, it's already like separation sort of starting to creep in there. And and then it's very seductive to kind of say, well, it's because I'm a musician and I'm tuned a different way and I'm cut from a different cloth or whatever. But I think I started off in my work making it about helping musicians, and I think I've ended up at a place now where it seems to be that it's more about telling people that they're actually not musicians. And I mean, not obviously there's a component of like wiggling your fingers around and playing an instrument and the practicality of doing it, but it's not someone's identity. The more someone gets embroiled with thinking their identity is musician, or who they are is artist, or who they are is a creative kind of person, it's actually pointing people to separation, because there's to be alive is to create. Thought's creative by its nature. We haven't got any choice in that, and it's beautiful, and we have our own flavor of it, whatever that might mean. But it's everything we do is imbued with our kind of character, but it's essentially what we are. So I tend to point people. I find myself pointing people more away from the fact that their identity is a musician. Just that it's our nature to create, because that's what we are. Is that creative energy, that creative force? It's all one energy, and it's just a set of words to talk about it in the field of music or the field of art, but it's essentially the same creative act.
And hence, I guess the title of your book, Just Play, not just play like a classical musician, just play like a stressed out jazz. It's literally, is that it? Tell me a little bit about your title of your book. What was the idea behind that anyway?
I just like, well, number one is that I heard a lot of people say that kind of thing. So whether they were sports people or musicians or whatever, that if they were stressed, all they wanted to do was just play. Or if they were, overthinking getting started, I fancy playing, but I overthink it. So just want to play. But it's also being playful. There's lots of, I liked it because there's lots of layers to it, because I used to be a classroom teacher, and there have been times when I've taught very young kids, and it's just a completely spontaneous process of messing about and not judging it and not overthinking stuff, but just being in that moment and messing about, and some noise happens to come out of this weird instrument with some strings, or this weird instrument with some ivory keys, and you kind of mess about and you hit it with your fist or whatever, but it somehow molds itself into music by accident. There's nothing really to do with the kid. They kind of know that, and they're just messing about. And it's I kind of like the idea of saying to people that it can be even simpler than you think it is. Even if you think it's simple already, it can always be that little bit simpler, because it's just purely about that unfolding. It's really what it's about. Just keeping it as simple as possible, pointing people to the simplicity, I think.
That's brilliant. You guys, I can sit here and ask you and listen to you all day, man, but I think I should give some of the other people that are on here, if you guys have any questions or any comments or anything so far, I'd love Miss Wendy. Let me go ahead and unmute you.
There we go. That was
Hi,
me.
Wendy.
Hi. Hey, Nick. Thank you so much for really breaking it down or breaking it open, whatever the right word is, to just kind of, again, point back to that fundamental nature of who we are, which are, in my worldview, the creator mind created us, and we are reflections of that, and we are by nature creators. And whether it's playing music, whether it's enjoying music, whether it's picking up a paintbrush either at your home with a roller or a paintbrush, you know, on an easel we are creative. We are creators and creative by our very nature. And when you just kind of delved in a little bit why you called your book Just Play, right?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Just Play. It reminds me of, I've been married to my husband for about 23 years now. And there are probably, I'm going to try not to go into hyperbole. I'm going to say that there are 200 to 300 books or CDs on how to play something. Typically it's banjo, harmonica, banjo, guitar. I think those are the three main ones over the years. And it's always about practicing scales and practicing some sort of musical theory. And he's almost 60. And the thought of taking that banjo out of its case and just going down to the corner and riffing with people is beyond his ability to imagine or cope. Now, one can say he's shy, he's reserved. Those are probably true. But there's some sort of threshold by which he thinks he needs to be a musician in this particular, and so it's so wonderful to hear this marriage, if you will, of the principles and that creative force. So what I'm hearing you say is what I am taking away is I am not a musician. I literally am not a musician, but I don't need to call myself, people don't need to call themselves, they say, I play music. I enjoy playing music. I enjoy planting a garden. I enjoy dancing. I enjoy painting. I enjoy knitting, as opposed to saying I am a knitter, because it is reduction-y. It's really very, like, oh, she's a knitter. Don't ask her to go to a concert with you because she's a knitter or whatever. Or don't ask her to go out dancing because she's a knitter or something like that. So just blow the top off of that and just be like, create, just do it. Nike said it first. I'm sorry, Nick, but just do it, right? Whatever it is, and let it flow. And I love that image of the little kids picking up this thing and picking up that thing, and whatever comes out, eventually you're like, this sounds pretty cool. Are we having a good time here, kids, or what? So
yeah, it's very common. It's not just a musical thing. People, they have an experience and they try and censor it. They have a feeling or a thought and they try and alter it, and that's what we're talking about in music, is that people like pick up a banjo, make a sound, and then instantly judge it before they've even noticed that they're doing the judging, and they're making so many judgments, or in that, whatever that thought is, right, that they don't stop to question, that they don't stop to think that they don't have to judge any of it. And no matter how bad the sound, whatever bad means, however bad the sound is that comes out, intrinsically it's not better or worse. It's just a sound, and it's been made by something that's living, that which is creating.
Right.
So
right.
It's not compulsory to judge. We're allowed to give ourselves a break, because right, we'll probably do more cool stuff if we're not beating ourselves up all the time.
Right. All banjo jokes aside, now I understand that one could get down a dark road of banjo jokes, which my husband.
I played a bit of banjo. My dad had a banjo, so I did.
Heard them all, yeah. Something like, how do you tune a banjo? You chuck it in the trash can or something like that. But anyway, but yeah, there's just something really very freeing about this way, and I really appreciate Amir's bringing you forward and sharing you with us, because it is like another twist on how humans operate in the world and our experience, and this realm of creativity. We need to, like you say, blow the doors off of it and just create, because who knows where it's all going to lead, either to personal joy or to a collective thing that's just couldn't have existed without other people hearing you, loving you, and coming alongside and saying, can I jump in on this or what? There's just so much that we're holding back from. I used to counsel kids in high school, in a Sunday school sort of of an approach, and I would say, God created you to be you, and without you playing the string that you were given to play, we're missing out on that thing. So don't try to be like her or like him. You need to be you, because we need that. And so that's kind of what I'm hearing in this, is that just do it, just create, just move with whatever your whatever thing you're hearing in the atmosphere, to just do it, is going to add to our human experience and enjoyment of this life. So that's it for me. Thanks.
Yeah, nice. That's lovely.
Thank you, Wendy. Who else? Who else has Steve? What's up, buddy?
Ooh.
Oh,
Hi guys, yeah, I love it because music's neutral. Like everything else, so whatever you're playing, someone's going to love it. You don't have to reach a standard of perfection. It's like everything else. Every note you play will be neutral. So someone, you could think to yourself you're making a racket, and someone else goes, "Oh." And that's why I love the neutrality of everything in this understanding that everything is worth something.
Yeah, it's kind of, I think about music now, I think in two different ways. I think about it in terms of the sound. So like I used to have like a feel good playlist, right? And like put it on in my car to feel good. And sometimes still play it, but it's a different kind of thing now. And as if the sound could make me feel a certain way. But then it's almost like, and this is kind of something that's kind of sprung to mind as I was writing the book, and as I've spoken to people, is that the music itself, lends itself as quite a nice metaphor for wisdom, or the song that we have inside us, or the music of the soul, the universe, or so in some ways the sound I feel is neutral to kind of, it can't control us and can't literally be the cause of what's putting us in a good mood or in a bad mood. But it seems to me that because sometimes when I've spoken to people, I've said, well, the sound isn't making you feel a certain way, and they get quite reactive about that, because they feel that they care so deeply and have such what feels like such a personal connection with the sound and the language of music, and the ability to kind of communicate something, that they think that can't be the case. And I've kind of thought about it quite a lot, and it just seems to me that like we have words as a language, we have sound that can help us to it's kind of like an echo of what's creating the sound. So you need some kind of movement to create a sound, which comes from something that's living.
Yeah, for sure. I mean,
like a fingerprint,
Yeah, for sure. Your favourite record played at 4:30 in the morning when you're half asleep won't be your favourite record anymore. So it really isn't coming from the music, is it?
Yeah.
It is inside out. It only works one way. So, but I just anyway wish you all the best in this. I think it's great and loving what you're doing.
Nice one, man. Thank you.
Cheers, man.
Jeanette has her hand raised. Let me get her. What did I do with you? Jeanette, go ahead and unmute yourself. Hi, Jeanette.
Hiya.
Hi, Jeanette.
Hi, Nick. Nice to see you again.
Nice to see you again. You all right?
I did a program with Nick. Nothing to do with, well, that's a stupid thing to say. Wasn't specifically about music. It was a coaching program earlier on in the year with Nick and Claire. My question's not actually about music, because I'm not a musician. but I know it applies to everything. What we're talking about is life, isn't it? So how do you go about when you have a full understanding of the principles, which again, thank you and Claire for. And I have gone pretty deep actually into it now, and it isn't just an intellectual understanding anymore, it's that deep knowing, which is brilliant. But sometimes, say when I'm out, you know, I do a lot of cycling and I cycle to a pretty good level, road cycling. But sometimes I find myself in my head insecure about not being as good as I feel I should be. And other people who I've brought up to a certain level are now going sort of way beyond what I can physically do. So for yourself, say for example, do you ever find yourself thinking, you know, I can't play as well as that person, I should be able to play it. What are they doing? It's completely outside in, totally and utterly outside in. And I know that, and I know I'm trying to secure a self that doesn't exist. But I'll guarantee you on Wednesday at some point when I'm out on that road, I will have that thought again. What has that individual done to make herself so much better than me when she was way behind me not that long ago? You know, has she got a motor in her bike? Is she taking drugs? What is she doing?
So the question is, like, what do I do when I feel that way? Is that what? Is that? I mean, is that what you mean?
Yeah, and the thing is, I kind of probably know the answer to this, because it's just I know the answer, and I know exactly what I'm doing.
I can speak to it.
Know.
I mean, I can speak to it. I mean, of course, I get that, and you know, maybe not specifically about whether I, you know, whether someone else is a better player than me or whatever. But I think every musician or anybody has that kind of thought of feeling separate. You know, I think that's just the way that it all works. And I don't always think it's helpful to divide, you know, certain thoughts into like inside out thoughts or outside in thoughts sometimes, because everything is, you know, even in that moment it's working inside out, and there's wisdom in it all. I you know, as far as I can tell. So I know for myself that when I've had moments of feeling like I should be doing better, then sometimes that I use that to, or sometimes what happens out of that is that I then go and practice in a different way, or that I take a break because I feel like I shouldn't be doing it, and whatever kind of needs to happen does happen. I suppose when it gets sticky is when we think that uncomfortable feeling of trying to measure up or trying to nudge ahead in terms of who we are, like we have some kind of power, because that's not what's going on. You know, it's a feeling of separation, and of maybe wanting to separate, to try and like show that we count as much as somebody else, but that somebody else is an illusion. You know, I think one of the things I kind of say in the book is that when we see someone who is an elite performer, it's easy to look at them and go, oh my God, they must be touched by the hand of God. But you know, they are, but so are you. That's what you're seeing is them. What you're seeing is kind of genius in action, but it's like looking in a mirror. It's not like looking over there to that separate. It's all the same as what it's you. What you're admiring and then feeling bad about not being, is you're seeing yourself. Yeah.
I know. We just need a reminder every now and again. You know, and the crazy thing in all of this is that none of it matters. It just doesn't matter. And like you say, what I'm seeing is me. And actually, I sound like I'm a bit resentful, and I'm not. I'm the complete opposite. I think it's wonderful that this is happening.
Let's be honest.
99.9% of the time.
It feels, if I have that feeling, I really want to get and do some practice, or I really want to like put the instrument away and never play it again. It's dead real, and it's useful. It's useful to have that, because it can be. I've had like violin lessons in the past where I was like torn to shreds by a teacher, and it's like, right, I'm going to be in the practice room at 7 a.m. and I'm going to do fundamental things to transform my sound in it. And it's been a useful process to have those kind of really horrible feelings. So they're all useful. And it's not to say that every person that picks up a violin or whatever is going to be a concert soloist. That's not how it works. I'm not saying that because the principles are universal, but every single person will find themselves creating elite performance. But the mechanism, the mechanism by which it works is universal. And maybe everybody being a concert violinist or whatever is not what the world needs. But people can be completely, comfortable in whatever's completely right for them, better than this idea that they think they need to be. I don't know.
Thank you, Nick.
Nick, that just reminded me. Thank you, Jeanette. A few years back, when I bankrupted my company, $1.8 million in debt, I was literally on my lowest end of my point of my life, and it was a homeless musician that I passed that connected me into the world. And what you just said about not everyone needs to be this glamorous musician that millions of people know, that homeless person with that guitar and that voice was what I needed in that moment. And you just brought me back and reminded me that the universe does bring out our creativity for the people in whatever way it shows up. And thank God the guy didn't say, I'm homeless, so I'm not going to be worth listening to, because he changed my life in that moment, right? And so thank you for bringing that to the forefront. I think that's absolutely brilliant and beautiful and very true.
Yeah, it's funny. It's funny because I've definitely I feel like I've stopped judging musicians compared to how I used to be as a music student. It feels very much now that it's almost just being in the presence of somebody making music is a kind of, it has the potential to be like a transcendent experience. It's just like, I love hearing people perform out of tune, and because you can still, if you know what to, if you know what to feel for, I guess, then you can still, whatever the sound is like, you still feel their presence as a musician. And obviously, if they want to be making like really good quality music or whatever, then there's a certain, they want to play in tune and whatnot. But like you said, doing it is what enabled that connection to be there for you. And that's the gift of it, I think. It's just sharing whatever's trying to come out in the moment that it's trying to come out. I think that's hugely valuable. The world needs more of it, I think. Yeah.
So if on this Zoom call every single person was a musician, and you have an opportunity to tell them what's important or what you're seeing, what would you say to a group of musicians right now on this call?
As a musician, you mean?
Yeah, from one musician to another. If this video is going to go out to millions of musicians, not to put you on the spot, you know, a million, 1.5 million people. That's all. But what would you tell them if they all had to sit down and listen to you right now?
I think that. Well, I think what we were talking about at the very beginning of the call, I think that seems to do a lot for people. To know that the moment to moment forming of thoughts in our mind, in the human mind, you know, that formless energy becoming form as an idea. That's the urge to create, the urge to do something, kind of taking action, and that's the most important thing that you can kind of listen to or tune your heart into or open up to me, because it's like it's the desire to kind of follow your nose or follow your heart that's the important thing. It's not so much how you go about doing it, but it's the desire, and it's kind of noticing that there is a desire and being honest about the fact that, you know, I kind of fancied playing, or I kind of fancied really putting my heart and soul into following this career, and being honest about, well, actually I would quite like to leave my job and make it as a professional musician, or I would quite like to start playing the violin at the age of 65 or whatever that is. But to be honest about what the urge is that comes up, because you don't know where that's going to take you. The fact that we think is a very, very powerful thing to anybody, but I find it very, very it's inspiring to point musicians or potential musicians to that creative force, because who knows what's gonna come out of that. So the fact that we create by our nature, that's huge, you know. I don't know if that's advice, but it seems to be the direction.
No, I think that's brilliant, and in its simplicity, I think it's even brilliant. I was going to ask another question because I want to keep getting in here, but I'm going to see if anyone else has anything to say before I ask anything else. Pramila.
Hi, Amir.
Hi.
Hi there.
Nick, hi. This is one of the best calls I've come across, because as a child, I loved music. I loved to dance. To me, that was the only way I could express myself. But I remember, I think I was maybe 13, 14, I danced on the stage in front of the whole school, just learning from the movies, Indian movies that we used to have. And then I have no voice. I have no dancing skills, none skills. But then I stopped, because I felt as people, mostly family and friends, looking at me and saying, what kind of a dance is this? Oh, that's out of tune. And I completely stopped. And whenever I would go to a party, to a wedding, I wanted to be with them. And I couldn't, because I would step on my own 2 feet. I had the desire so much that my daughter is a brilliant dancer, a wonderful voice. And then I started saying, oh, I've given everything to her, but I can't do it. And yet, whenever I go to a concert or just hear somebody, I love watching people's fingers on the piano or any string instrument, anything. And just being with the sound that comes out of it. but I still couldn't do anything because there was this stuff in my brain that I can't do it. And recently, just a month ago, I'm now 66. A month ago, I have a friend who teaches line dancing at a senior center. I joined the class, and you should have seen me the first day. The whole group stopped for me. They couldn't go further because I just couldn't do it. Couldn't catch up. But then I figured out how to video this person on my phone, the teacher. I came home and I practiced. And I can stay with the group. It's inside me. And the way it's coming out, I love it. I love it. I won't be a dancer. I know I don't have a voice. But the fact that I can be on the floor with other people and enjoy myself with my legs still hurting because I'm still stiff, I love it. And what you're saying, by just play, that really attracted me because that's all I'm doing, just playing. And before, I wouldn't have told my family or anybody that I'm going to a dance class. Now, I don't care. I've told everybody I'm going to a dance class. I just came and I said, I'm going to a dance class. And I feel so free.
That's beautiful. That's really beautiful. And, you know, the thing is, you know, when you said I'm not a dancer, it's like, to me, that it sounds like you are a dancer, actually. It sounds to me like you know, we could draw the line wherever we want of where dancer begins and somebody else, you know, but that line, creating that line is just made up. So it's just a great big spectrum of like where you dance and how much you dance or whatever. And it's kind of meaningless. And if you know, nothing's going to stop if the whole dance class like grinds to a halt. You know, you might feel a bit uncomfortable, or they might feel a bit uncomfortable or angry or whatever, but it's not really saying anything. So I just loved what you said, you know, but that willingness to kind of do it, well, the honesty of listening to what, you know, the message that you're getting, which sounds to me like get on with it, enjoy it, go for it. And, you know, yeah, no, it's superb. It's superb. Keep doing it.
I'm just happy to hear that.
Yeah, thank you. It's beautiful.
Thank you. Thank
Brought
you.
a smile to my heart.
That was really sweet. That's and I got just as impacted as Pramila did with what you said in the beginning. The simplicity of what you said about the curiosity, that you are already that creative force, and what that extends to. Now, it could even be a hug in that creative, you know, like that's what we miss, is when people go, well, how do I share the principles, as if it's like you saying, well, go pick up a saxophone or go pick up a guitar or go learn how to dance or go to an event. It's, you are that creative force, like you said. So if it looks like a hug, then that's what the music will sound like. If it's crying with someone for a minute, that's what it'll sound like. And that's what I'm getting out of this call, which, and I have to say, I agree with Pramila. This is one of my favorite calls so far with what you've shared with us. So I did want to ask you, I was reading a quote, where words leave off, music begins. Yeah. Why does it seem to you that dance, music, art strikes us in a different place than anything else? What is it about that? Even though you did mention, well, it's not coming from them, but what do you think? It does something. It does move us, and there is no doubt about that for me. Right. And so my question to you is, you know, from your point of view, what is that?
Yeah, that's a really good question, because it is definitely, that seemed to me to be a real mixed message that I was hearing in the Principles Being a Musician, was like, everything, you know, music's neutral, the outside world is neutral, but there's this really deep connection. And as far as I can tell, it's, you know, in the same way that, you know, we have words and a kind of culture around our language that help us express something, and whatever that is that's being expressed is like, we get a feel for the person in the same way you pick up on someone's vibe, you know, from the words. And I don't mean that saying a swear word can make someone feel reliably the same way each time, but you pick up on the energy that they're coming from, because we instinctively know that we're one. And to me, it's the same with music, is that, you know, we instinctively pick up on the fact that there is life that's making sound, and there's kind of a language of the, it sounds a bit woo-woo, but like the kind of like language of the soul, or kind of like a spiritual kind of language that it kind of feels like that people get very romantic about. You know, like there's lots of these kind of quotes of, you know, like I don't know, music be the food of love and all that kind of thing. And it just seems to me that music's non-verbal. You don't need to speak the same linguistic, you know, verbal language. You don't. You can kind of, through music, you can pick up on the kind of gestures that were needed to make it as well. So if something's loud, then it requires a certain impetus, which is like a kind of echo of a certain kind of flow of energy. So there's a kind of physicality to it as well, but I just keep coming back to this connection with the aliveness that created that sound. We hear a sound, and we get a sense for the kind of energy that created it. That's what it seems like to me, is that the sound that we hear is like an echo from the creator. You know, it's an echo, and we get a sense of what was upstream because of that. That's the only sense that I can kind of make of it. And you know, I was just, what sprang to mind was this time when I was listening to, where was it? I went to see a ballet. I went to see the Nutcracker, and not a big ballet fan particularly, but I hadn't really done it before, and went and saw the Nutcracker, and then suddenly had this experience of realizing that Tchaikovsky, however many years ago, created this music. And the force, the energy that created that music, and he kind of caused it to be written down, or whatever. That's the same creative force that was in all the people who were listening, and it's the same creative force in the musicians who are playing. It's kind of like it's just. It reminds us of the creativity in all of us. And I never had that experience. It felt really odd when I was listening to it, because it's like, I feel connected to this dead guy. It's bizarre. I've never met him, and I thought it was like an old dead Russian composer on a pedestal, but I felt very, very intensely connected to him, and it was bizarre, but it kind of made sense, because it's like, well, it's the same energy that makes me go, oh, you know, I quite like to play like that, or I fancy dancing, you know, or I fancy creating a bit of art. We just sense that we're one. We know that we're one, and it's another way, without words, without traditions, you know, linguistic traditions, I think, of being reminded of it. It's already there. I think that's the thing, because it's true. It's just music can remind us in a way that maybe language can't. Rambled a bit, but I don't know if you followed what I'm saying.
Yeah, that's brilliant. You know what came to me while you're talking, Nick, is the first thing a newborn, a baby in the belly of their mother hears is ba-boom, ba-boom, blood, all this stuff happening, breathing. It's a beat. They listen. As soon as consciousness at some point arises in a child, I know this firsthand because a couple of years ago we had to do we got to hear my child in my wife's belly, and there was music in there. Literally, they wake up to an encapsulated body full of sounds. So I think it's ingrained in us. And there was no words there. It's not, mommy didn't say you're going to be okay. The only thing they started off with is a beating heart that has a rhythmic beat to it. And it's so calming. And so lets the child know that they're okay and they're alive and they're now part of the beat of humanity in a sense. And I think, piggybacking off of what you said, it literally reminds us of who we are because that's where we started. We started with a beat. We started from that sound of life, So.
It seems to be, like saying, like meditation or prayer, or you could say music or a hug or whatever. I think it's all pointing in the same direction. It's just, absolutely. It's a really cool. It's a cool topic actually. It's one that keeps coming back to me, like thinking, well, is there more to it? But it's we said enough. It's cool. It's cool.
So. We are almost on the last bit of our call. This went so fast, man. I'm telling you, this was just, if you guys are on this call, wave if you guys loved this so far. Just this, Nick, it has been really, really incredible. And I'd love to do this again. Meg, thanks for the kind words that you wrote. Does anyone want to say any final questions, any final thing? Besides Steve, let's see, is there anyone else? Okay, all right, fine. Go ahead and unmute yourself, buddy.
Yeah, I just wanted to say everything you said. The two of you are just waxing lyrically brilliant. Music's a way of explaining the principles with no metaphors. That's all we've got is metaphors. But when you've got music, you can just sit and listen. That's all I wanted to say. But that's what I got from your conversation. No metaphors needed. It's just, as you say, you're listening to music as soon as you're born.
I love
and
that.
I just think that's beautiful. There's no metaphors needed. It's like this, it's like that, it's like the other. No, you just sit down and listen. So brilliant call. Thank you guys. That's all.
Thanks for being here, man. Great.
Nick, let me ask you something. So I do want to talk a little bit about what you are doing in your Kickstarter. And I know, when I first saw this, I thought, why does he have to do a Kickstarter to get a book out? I got a book out, you just put it on, but I know you're doing something bigger. And I don't know if that's being conveyed or what's going on. Tell us a little bit about what the idea of the Kickstarter is.
Yeah, probably isn't being conveyed. And thank you for asking that question. The plan that I'm hatching, or the thing that I'm acutely aware of, the reason that the Kickstarter is happening is because I want the whole world to know about this stuff, and I know that musicians are a fantastic bunch of ambassadors, and they are a group that will reach the young people of planet Earth in a way that the politicians could never do, or the scientists could never do, or the 3P coaches could never do. And I suddenly realized, apart from little old me not feeling quite so insecure, that if the book was introduced to a large number of people, and somehow one musician with a very large following, or a series of musicians, helped to make this, the new mindfulness or the new buzzword, and it suddenly became something that everybody was shouting about, and it was a must-do thing, then that would have a hugely accelerating impact on the work that everyone in the principles community is doing. It suddenly struck me that music could be a real fast track to getting it out there. So that the Kickstarter, on the one hand, is about raising some money to make sure that the book was professionally designed and all that kind of thing. And so I wanted it to look really proper, not like some guy's just done it in his shed or whatever. But more than that, it's about banging the drum and hoping it's going to be picked up by someone who's as enthusiastic about it as we all are. Because it just seems to me that that music has an amazing potential for reaching people. So that's really the thing that's behind it, is that I want people to, I want more people to know about the understanding. It's not even about reading my book. It's about, you know, if I've written something in my book that's inelegantly put together, and someone goes, well, let me read another book about the principles, and then it suddenly helps the wave of consciousness spread, or whatever the right metaphor is. Then yeah, I think there's immense potential in talking to musicians and people through the medium of music. I think purely that's a very powerful thing. So the Kickstarter is just to help that be as big as possible. You know, that's kind of why that's why I asked Grammy winners to talk about it as testimonials. The same kind of reason, is to kind of help it spread as quickly as possible. It's not to say how great I am, because it's nothing really to, I mean, it's cool that I feel glad to be the one that wrote it, but you know, it's a message that the world needs, I think, and musicians are going to be right at they're the people who are going to be early adopters and pioneers and revolutionaries and all that kind of thing. You know, they're hellraisers. They don't care what mainstream's doing. They like being the first to adopt it. To me, that seems like a huge opportunity for the principles community. You know, yeah, that's my secret master plan that's cooking.
Yeah, in a way, this might be one of the most important principle books to be read, to be honest with you. Not simply because of its content, but the direction of where you're taking it with what you said with musicians. I mean, in my opinion, I mean, every single era has music that we know about: the 70s, the 60s, the 50s, the 80s, the 90s, up till now. Like, music has moved a direction. You can hear a song and go, I know that song, it's from this, and it'll give you a memory from where you were at. You know, it's so powerful. And I think this needs to be out. I agree. This is something that's fundamentally needed. And I love what you said. If it's not my book, it may be someone else's. But what a great gateway for them to explore another avenue, and for them to do what you're doing and send it out to the world, you know? So I think it's brilliant. Megan, we can get you for the last thing.
Hi everyone, sorry I've dipped in and out, but thanks so much for allowing me on here. As you can see by the state of me, we're just back from a festival, and it was just amazing sharing music with people who, you know, drumming circles and things, with people who are not musicians at all, but just that innate intuitive connection, and people being able to do something just through flow rather than through any learnt skill. And just along the same lines as what Nick was saying, I've had this long held fantasy of putting together a group of musicians and doing, putting on a festival for young people and adults too, to really kind of share the principles through the feeling that you get when you share music and dance together. So just can't wait to read Nick's book. It sounds beautiful. Thank you so much. That's it.
Thanks for that.
Thank you.
Sounds like a great thing.
So let me ask you, how far are you on your goal? And again, I know money always gets so weird and all that, but I don't care today. I think this needs to happen. And so my question is, how far are you?
As far as I know, before the call, I think it was £1,533 of £2,000. So we're talking about £500.
£500. Okay.
Yeah, short of the what is that, $600-700?
So here's my proposal for anyone that's on this call or watch this call. My group, I never ask for money. I share so much stuff. I do all these Zoom calls, and I probably share more than most people that actually have programs. And I've probably given enough stuff out. And as you're on this call, this could have been a $500 product if we wanted to make it into a product and a coaching program, blah, blah, blah. For people that are here, and I don't ask for this too often, when you get off this phone call or this Zoom call, for the love of God, donate a little bit if you can. If that's the minimum, whatever it is you can do. $5. Thank you, Steve. $10. I feel like I'm doing a Jerry like a telethon or something.
This is amazing, man. Thank you. This is
No, but
amazing.
honestly, man, I didn't know how this is gonna go, and it was a kind favor because you asked on Facebook. You've been pleading, you've been asking, and I said, I'm gonna give it a shot and see what he says. This was brilliant, man, and I wish I had you earlier, and I can't thank you enough. And like I said, when I get off the call, just to know, I already donated. Didn't donate a lot. After this call, I'm gonna go back and donate more. I really am, honestly. My goal is to have at least 10 books in my hands by the time this launches. I'm going to go. I own a business here in San Diego. I work at a recovery center. A lot of them are unfortunately musicians. So I can't wait to pass this book around like it's the best thing on earth. So again, if you're on the Zoom call, please donate. I'll send the link after we're done. If you started to listen to this and you're watching a recording and you still have time, please help him get this, on the ground and into the hands of people.
It's very kind of you. Thank you for doing that.
Yeah, and
thank you to everyone that's watching and thinking about doing it. That's amazing. I'm humbled by this. It's really cool.
Yeah, my man. And any final words before we leave? Anything else you want to say? I think we pretty much covered everything. It was brilliant.
Well, rinsed it out of me. I think it's really, I just feel really lucky to be here and to be able to talk about things. And it just surprises me. Well, the thing I'm saying to people about their creating is the same message I need to hear for myself. So it must mean that we all could do with sharing the song that's in our heart, whatever that is, whether it's something that we want to create as a coach or as a parent or whatever, but it's really it's just like listening to that inner wisdom and kind of following your nose to where it takes you. It seems to be hugely powerful, and I just feel lucky to be on the call, and it's a phenomenal group that you've got. So I'm really, really lucky. I'm just saying thank you, really.
Yeah, thank you, my man. Thank you. And do you have time for one more question? Fiona does want to ask a question.
Yeah.
Is that cool? And then we'll leave it as to that. A lot of people are saying thank you, and
well, thank you to you,
Miss Fiona.
I in of it. Can you hear me?
I can hear you. Hello.
Hi. I missed the beginning of the call because I was working, and sorry about lying down, but I was at a wedding all weekend. I'm absolutely knackered. But I'm a psychologist, and I do coaching with people, and I'm really into creativity and things like that. My question is, there's a high correlation between musicians and mental health problems. And I wondered if you had anything to say about that, really, because I do think the Free Principles has a far-reaching potential to help people with mental health difficulties.
I'm really glad you brought this up, actually. I didn't mention anywhere else on this call, actually, that I approached, well, there was a major bit of research that was done when it was out, like November last year, that Help Musicians UK did, which is the biggest musicians charity in the UK, and they said that musicians are supposedly 3 times as likely to suffer from depression. And when I read that as a headline for their research, I thought I need to team up with them and to like kind of set the record straight, because to me that something seemed wrong about that. People thinking that music intrinsically made people sick, and that was the title of the thing, actually. Does music make me sick? And there was all kinds of people that kind of reacted to that not very well. And to answer your question, the same stumbling block that we all trip up against, of this question of who we truly are. That's the same stumbling block that musicians are up against. I guess maybe if there is a difference, then it's that people who do music professionally can often be so wedded to the idea that they, as musician, is the same thing as them as a spirit, as their identity, so that it's become one thing in their mind that I am a musician. I am a musician. Therefore, if I can't create music, say if I have an injury, then I cease to be valid. I cease to be relevant. Or if my record doesn't sell, then that's the world giving me feedback on my validity. That's how I felt when I was injured. That's kind of how I came to the principles in the first place. Was I had a shoulder injury and couldn't really play, and started to feel like I was kind of isolated and that I was ceasing to be relevant to the world. So as far as I can tell, if there is something special about musicians, it's the fact that I think it's not just a career, it's like a real passion that people have. They're aware of this deep urge and this kind of this deep spiritual capacity of the music, but they think that them as musician is what that is, I think, and they don't notice that's them before musician is made. It's the essence. It's deeper than just being a musician. So it's not who they truly are is not their music career or what they create or how well they can play or what number in the hit parade they are. Who they truly are is being okay in spite of any of that world of form, and that can seem quite a slippery, confusing thing to them, as far as I can tell when I speak to them, because people say, I live and breathe music, or music is life, and it can sound like a strange mystery and a strange, confusing matter, but it's very, very simple. But it's just the same misunderstanding that we're all up against, I think, brought into particular focus because they feel so identified, they feel so committed to this particular bit of the illusion. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it's very interesting what you say, and I agree with everything you said, and it's very interesting. I'm gonna ironically think about it a bit more. But also, I guess where I was coming from, where the question came from, was I feel that a lot of musicians, like artists, they're already. You did address this actually, but like I said, I'm like really tired. But there was a specific angle that I was thinking about, and that's they already think out of the box. They already see life in a very different way from a lot of people, and a lot of people that are like that turn to music because they find it's an outlet for their emotions, it's an outlet for their thoughts. A lot of artists, they write about, they sing about, they draw about, they paint about the stuff that goes on in their head, and then they find that other people relate to it, and they also do it. But it's just really interesting to me that, the whole dilemma of, because people with mental illnesses, they're musicians, artists, people with a high level of intelligence, often become mentally ill. And I've just asked myself this question my whole life, really, like, what is it that causes that? And, my answer I came to was it's the identification with the ego, it's the identification with what's wrong with us rather than what's right with us. And I relate to what you said about injury because I've been a semi-professional sportswoman twice. And, when I got injured, it just devastated my whole universe because suddenly I had 10 hours a week where I just didn't know what to do with. I wasn't training anymore. Never mind my competitive time. And it is really interesting. I gave up trying to be a semi-professional cyclist again because as an adult, I just don't have the physical makeup that I had when I was a young adult that enabled me to compete at such a high level and not get injured. As soon as I started again as an adult, I got injured. It is true that some of us are just born with, I know about sport with the muscles that are particularly related to a particular sport. We can go as far as we like in our training and we can get really good, but we're never going to be the best unless we have muscle tissue that's going to take us there. And I kind of said two things now. I said one about, do you really think that musician is related to mental health? Because the person just sees the world in such a different way.
I think to be really clear, I think my instant gut reaction when I heard that correlation between mental health and musicians is that's phony. It's not because they're musicians. It's not intrinsically because they're musicians. It's because they're misunderstanding who they are. They're thinking that they're separate. It's the same thing that we're talking about. It's also, I think, it's because they identify with that as their career, and they take it very, very personally. But the root of the problem is the misunderstanding. It's not the career choice, because there are people who get as embroiled in their identity as a sports person or their identity as mother, or it's the degree to which someone's ensnared by the misunderstanding. It's not the form. It's misunderstanding who they are. That's the root of the problem. If it's a problem, that's the misunderstanding. And then they want to, because they think they need to, they try and fix something that isn't broken, and then they spin in circles and create a load of mental friction. It's the misunderstanding that's the root.
Nick, I thank you, Fiona, for your questions, and I want to say I love what you just said at the end. That's the fundamental problem as well in my recovery center. The first question they ask is, how do I go back into the real world as an addict or a former addict? And so they start from this identity and personality to go back into a real world, which already puts you 10 steps behind, because you're coming up from this idea of who you are and this idea of a real world, instead of I'm already in the real world. I'm already here. What can I do? And what you just said is really, really eye-opening and absolutely true. And I'm going to let you go because we are way past our time. And like I said, I think we can go on with this. And you know what? Would you be down to do another one? Would you guys be down to hear him do another one?
I've loved it.
In the meantime, like I said, thank you everyone for joining us and for staying longer. And Nick, I can't thank you enough. This was absolutely brilliant. I'm going to post it right now as soon as we get off, and so you can share it if you'd like. And I'm going to post the link one more time. Like I said, for you guys that are on the call, please, let's get them past this number, and hopefully I can, at least for my own ego, say I was part of that journey with you. So
you're an absolute legend for having me here. Thank you so much.
Absolutely. Thank you, everyone. By the whole thing. Lovely. Thank you, Nick, and love you, buddy, and I'll talk to you guys soon.
Thanks, folks. Bye. See you. Bye-bye.
Bye, everyone.